In 1982, the Austrian Film Museum received 5 reels of a feature film. The reels had been discovered in an attic stored in an MGM can and wrapped in newspaper, and revealed themselves to be a nitrate copy of von Stroheim's Blind Husbands. The discovery was particularly significant because this print was the only tinted German-language version of the film to be discovered to date. The collection of the Austrian Film Museum possesses 2 copies of Blind Husbands, the black and white universally known American version and this until now unknown version. The American version measures 1,883 meters in length and runs for 92 minutes at 18 frames per second. The Austrian version preserved by the Film Museum runs at 2,045 meters in length and runs for 99 minutes at 18 frames per second. After a safety print was made from the nitrate original, it was compared with the American version. 4 sequences were later digitized in order to illustrate some of the more striking differences between the 2 prints. Blind Husbands was released in Austrian cinemas in 1921 under the title of The Revenge of the Mountains Blind Husbands. The distributor, the American Film Co., was also responsible for the German-language title cards. The title cards indicating each reel's number bear the brand mark of Ignaz Rheintaler, a distributor active in the southeastern regions of Austria. However, not only was this main title altered, but the meaning of many further titles was also changed considerably. In the American version, the town of Cortina is situated on the Austro-Italian border. Note the reproduction of Peter Bruegel's painting Hunters in the Snow in the background. The Austrian version omits any reference to the geographical location of Cortina, possibly in order to avoid the issue of the Austrian-Italian conflict over South Tyrol. Along these lines, in a later scene, a platoon of Austrian Alpine soldiers is simply referred to as a platoon. The most striking difference between the 2 versions can be found in the title card introducing Erich von Stroheim's role. Whilst in the American version, Erich von Stroheim is described as being an Austrian cavalry officer, the Austrian print turns him into an impostor, wearing the trappings of an officer to disguise his trickery. Furthermore, the title card spells von Stroheim's name incorrectly and omits the von. What do these changes signify? One suggestion is that in the years following the First World War, the image of the Imperial Army was not to be tarnished. The question is whether Austrian audiences of the time would have found von Stroheim's presentation of an officer convincing at all. Christian Ortner, curator of the Museum of Military History in Vienna, suggests that, at first glance, the uniform seems authentic. But on closer inspection it reveals itself to be a potpourri of contradicting elements. Given the fact that the historical setting of the film is itself uncertain, the presentation most likely resembles a dragoon from the early 20th century. War veterans would have almost certainly objected to these contradictions. One last example. Due to the late release of the film in Austria, this title had to be adapted to reflect the inflation of the Austrian currency. 250 Kronen therefore become 2,000 Kronen. The scene in the coach at the beginning of the film offers a clear example of how the 2 versions differ as regards the duration of individual shots. If the 2 sequences are aligned side by side on a digital editing station, it is immediately clear that they differ in length, shots in the American version generally being shorter. In the upper right-hand corner sits the Austrian version, in the lower left-hand corner the American. This becomes even more obvious when the versions are synchronized shot by shot and missing frames are substituted by black clips. Even more spectacular is the second half of the sequence. The technique used reveals that the Austrian version includes shots which are missing in the American version. For example, a title card or Margaret and von Steuben exchanging glances in the coach. A further convincing example can be found in the sequence showing church bells being tolled. Here you see the opening of the sequence in the American version. The Austrian version additionally shows the boy tolling the bells. This final example illustrates how the simple relocation of two shots alters the entire composition of a sequence. In the American version, the day commences with the departure of a mountaineering expedition. They cross a slope and reach the summit. The morning advances and the tourists go on a shopping trip. Dr. Armstrong is called to a patient. Margaret and von Steuben remain behind alone. In the Austrian version, the mountaineering expedition departs. The tourists go shopping, and Armstrong is called to a patient. While all this is taking place, the mountaineering expedition crosses the slope, and Margaret and von Steuben take a stroll to the mountain shrine. While the American version offers the mountaineering episode as a separate narrative strand, the Austrian version alternates between the two storylines. But where is the shot of the summit? It comes a few minutes later, intercut with a dialogue between Margaret and von Steuben.